voting on them and doing their own work, basically to pad their own deal. There's been a real smokescreen of recent too, and you've seen the resignation of our CEO and our president, Tom Jones and Tom Ramey. It's been called for unethical reasons that have happened in there, and they may be unethical. It's a matter of question, I guess, when you don't when you attend some conference calls and don't identify yourself. Those are the same conference calls that a year before they were invited to attend to, and were invited again this year in a separate way through a state CEO who in all state beef council of CEOs beat. It's just a matter of did they identify themselves or not. And basically the reason they resigned was because the pressure was put on them so long, and their phones were ringing so much that their families were getting very tired of it. And so we've lost some good people that were really dedicated to the system. As far as the other side, I don't know how they're getting by with what they are, because if we question what they did, it was not immoral, it was illegal, just plain flat illegal. There was data taken from and information from our state beef council in South Dakota that was turned over to private individuals that had no connection, and that information has been since returned to both USDA and the CBB board. But we are not questioning that apparently at this time out of the act and out of the reason for, we put it on the back burner. We're going to go straight forward and dwell on the things that need to be changed in the CBB at this time. Maybe some other organizations may pick that up and go with it here in the next few weeks. I don't know where that's going for sure. But I guess I'll just turn it over for questions on it, if any have any questions there on the CBB real quick.
Vaughn, is all this controversy, have they kind of backed off of going from the $1 to $2? You know, that was a big deal a couple, 3 years ago.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything. In fact, we've studied that through our meetings here, and I've only been on officially since January. And it's pretty well known that if we asked for $2, there'd be a referendum and it would probably be called down. This is the danger of what's going to happen. We vote on these rules in Gethsemane, 106 of us directors. We have to leave our political differences behind ourselves. We each have our organizations and we'd like to vote that way. We have a responsibility to vote for the average producer out there. If you look at the associate or the group that's fighting our roles, they represent about 3% of the producers out there. If you take all the organizations and you figure out the percentage of people that belong to them, whether it's our organizations, their organizations, comprehensive groups, probably 20% of the producers are represented. That leaves 80% of the producers out there that don't belong to any organization. So 80% of my decisions should cover those people on how I vote down there too. But a lot of people of the 106 are not willing to leave their political ties at the door and come down and vote for that. And if they don't do that, we have a good danger of a referendum being called and possibly losing the whole checkoff, never having the checkoff again. There is a possibility maybe, and they're researching it right now, we could have a referendum for changes in there. We're not sure. But the most likely cause, if there's a referendum and a vote, it'll probably get voted down and we'll start with nothing.
My question would be, Vaughn, if we are going to lose the checkoff, I mean, if there's such a convoluted mess and there's been corruption that you talk about, I mean, maybe losing the checkoff may not be such a bad idea.
If it, and I don't want to stick my neck on the block here, but there's a lot of people out there that are saying just that same thing, Kimmy. And you have to weigh how much of this 70% of the contractor organization's funding comes from the checkoff. And that money turned around and goes to the policy side and is used against us in a lot of cases. I think everybody in this room will agree it's being used against us. And that's something you have to weigh. We have to stop and say, how bad is it? How bad do we need to shut this money source off on there? Of that, you know, and it's not being ruled out. I think we're going to try all other options first, And I shouldn't say we, the CBB won't do it, but other organizations are working on it.
Any other questions for Vaughn? Let's give him a round of applause. One more from Gerald.
Does the act ensure that they are always the contractor?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a big gray area, and we fought over that for a long time. But the Act states that they should contract with an industry organization that was in existence prior to 1986. There are other industry organizations, Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, and some others in there. But the way the Act was set up in there, that NCBA was the one that they started with in there. And many of those other organizations don't want to touch it right now. I will propose, and real quick here, I will propose when I go down to Gethsemane that we form a committee in the CBB to study rules or changes to the Act and the order and modifications to it that should be done, and also listening to other organizations, gaining all the input, and then that is part of our duty, is to submit that to the USDA for suggested changes to the Act and the order. And that would be probably the first thing we need to do right offhand. And with that, I didn't mean to scare anybody today. I just want to thank you, tell you these problems. It's something, whether it's GIPSA or whatever, the main problem here is not just that money working against us, it's not being able to price our product. We have to stay on top of that. We have an obligation to send our money, to feed this world. Basically, we need to give them good quality food, safe food. We have an obligation to support this nation, and we are the ones that are in the position to do it. We have to let the USDA know that we recognize that and that we can work with them and bring this country back. We have an obligation more than anything else to uphold what our 52 immortals that did, or 56, excuse me, that signed the Declaration of Independence. They gave us great independence that nobody in this world had ever dreamed of prior to that. And it's been passed down to us from generation to generation. We have an obligation to tell Washington exactly that we wish to have this independence and this quality of life passed on to our children, and passed on to them without bondage. And we're headed that way. Our children are going to be in bondage for many years to come. Thank you.
Our next speaker is a good friend of mine, and he's traveled clear across the United States to be here today. He is a true gentleman. He comes from Mississippi. He and his wife, Ann. He's the mayor of Pickens, Mississippi, and they have 2 adult children, many precious grandchildren he has on here. He calls himself a longtime independent livestock dealer. We just call you a cow trader out here. Okay. Joel and his brother continue to run the company founded by his father in 1964, buying cattle across Southeast and shipping them to the states of Texas, Kansas, New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. He served on the Mississippi Beef Council since '92 and currently serves as president of the Mississippi Livestock Markets Association. He joined RCAF USA in 2003. He was active in achieving the COOL, participated in '05 in the RCAF USA fact-finding team that investigated CAFTA, and he is moving up from Mississippi State Membership Chair to the National Membership Co-Chair in 2007. He later represented RCAF USA before his sister organization, the Australian Beef Association, that same year. Joel continues to serve as the organization as Checkoff Chairman and Region 12 Director. And when they asked him why he wanted to be a director and what his desire was, he wants people to know the difference between RCAF USA and NCBA. And he also thinks it's necessary to continue the education process to bring independent producers such as yourselves in with RCAF USA and help them all improve their bottom lines. And if you know Joel Gill like I do, he thoroughly plans to do all of this and more. Let's welcome the Vice President of RCAF USA, Joel Gill.